All right, today we're taking a look at CS Academy, which is offered by Carnegie Mellon. And we're going to take a look at using loops and lists. So we'll have a list of numbers, and we'll use a loop to go through and do some basic math and try some different things out. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is make sure we're using comments throughout our code to let everybody know what we're doing. So we'll use a loop to cycle through a list of numbers and perform calculations. All right, not quite sure all of them yet, but we'll perform some calculations. So first thing I want to do is create my variables. We like creating the variables at the top of the code. All right. And I want to think about what variables I'll need. Okay. So I want to have a list of numbers. Okay. And sometimes that list of numbers is provided to us, or you create the list. And other times we might ask the user for some input. Okay, this particular video, we're going to provide the list of numbers. If you're doing an assignment for our class, please make sure you check the instructions. If it does ask for user input, you'll need to build your list a little differently than what we're doing here. So my list of numbers will be created ahead of time. So I'll have numbers. That's going to be the name of my list. Okay. This is just a variable name. You can name this anything that you find convenient or something that's meaningful to you. You can call this ice cream cone if you want to. This is all up to you. And then on this side, I'm going to create a set of square brackets. And those square brackets tell the computer that this is a list. Right now, as you look at this line 3, the list is empty. Okay. If you were to create code to take user input, you could build this list out, dot append and dot pop and dot remove and do all those type of things. We're not going to do that in this video today. But again, please check your assignment. And if your assignment is asking you for user input, you will have to set your code up a little differently. So I'm going to have a list of numbers here. And I'm just going to make it real easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, those are my numbers. Okay. And first thing I want to do is find the total of all these numbers. Right. So I'll leave a little bit of white space here. And I'm going to use a loop to find the total of all the numbers in a list. Okay. So if I want to do that, if I want to add all these numbers up, I need a variable to store those as I add them together. As I add 1 plus 2 plus, I need a variable to store those. So I'll come back up here, and on line 4, I'm going to create another variable. If I'm trying to find the total of all the numbers or the sum of all the numbers, let's create a variable that does that for us. So sum, that could be a good variable name, or total, right? I'll use total. Okay. Total equals what? Well, when the code starts, total equals 0. Total equals 0. From there, we'll add 1 and 2 and 3, but to start with, total 0. All right. So now we want to use a list to add all these numbers up and store them in total. Okay. And we have some different options for our loops. I'll use a for loop today. A for. Now, the way the computer is going to go through and look at the numbers, it needs to look at just number 1 as it goes through the loop. And then when we go back through the loop again, we just want to look at number 2, and then we just want to look at number 3. So the way you do that is you tell the computer for, and then you need to give a temporary variable right here. You could say for x in numbers, okay? All right, and x is a temporary placeholder for the number 1 and the number 2 and then so on and so forth, okay? If you want to come up with a more meaningful name, you could do that maybe for item, okay, or index. All right, whatever makes sense to you. So for item, in numbers. And what do we want to do? Well, I want to go through the loop, and I want to start with the number 1, and I want to add it to total. And then I'm going to go through the loop again, and I'm going to add the number 2 to total, and then the number 3, and so on and so forth. Okay, so total equals total plus item. The total starts at 0. The first time I go through, total equals 0 plus 1. And then when we go through it again, it'll be total equals 1, because that's what the total was a few minutes ago, plus the number 2. All right. And just to make sure we're getting the numbers we want, I'm going to print the total after each of these. Okay. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to see the total, and then the total should increase and increase, and it should just keep going on and on. Okay. All right. So let's give that a try. There's a nice little code right now. We've got some stuff working. Let's give it a whirl here. So when I run it, here's my, over on the right, here's my display. And the first time I go through the list, total was 0, and I added 1 to it. So that's what that number 1 is. The next time I go through the list, total is set to 1, and I add a 2, and 2 plus 1 is 3. And then the next time I go through, I do 3 plus 3 is 6. So my total is 6. And then the next time I go through the loop, 4 gets added to the list. So 6 plus 4 is 10. And you can see that math works pretty easily. All right, it works nicely for me. Okay. All right, so that helps. Well, leave a little bit of white space here. And what are some other things we want to do with math? Maybe we want to find the average. Find the average. How about average number from a list? How could we do that? How could we find that? Well, I could have a variable name, right? I could create a variable if I wanted to. All right. Easiest thing would be print total divided by 5, right? Total, which we know is going to be 15, and I have 5 items in the list. One thing we want to be thinking about, though, as we go through this course is what happens if that list grows by 1 number or 2 numbers or 100 numbers? Are you going to have the time to go through and update this code? Or is there a way that we could write this? Right? Could we use the length of the list to figure that out? For today, I'm not going to do that. All right. But if we were to do user input and the user typed in 7 numbers, and then the next time they typed in 700 numbers, would your code be able to work? Think about some of those the test cases that you have done throughout Carnegie Mellon. And you apply different numbers in different scenarios. So line 12 is not the most efficient. Okay, so you want to think about that when you build out bigger codes and codes that will change, and things where we're relying on user input. Okay, but for now that should work. So this will go through the loop. It'll print those numbers out that we saw a few minutes ago on the right-hand side, and then it should do one more print for me, and it should find the average. So we'll run that. And as I go down the list there, it added one more number. It added 3.0. Notice that my list of numbers on line 3 are integers. The print statement for the total come out as integers, but then when I did the average, it gave me an answer as a float. Just some things to keep in mind if you decide to build out code for money or time, things like that. We'll want to make sure we have the right number of decimal places. Let's give our users just some prompts so they better understand what we're looking at here. So I'm going to go back up to line 9, and I'm going to say the total of all the numbers is. All right, I'll be a little bit nicer. And then I'll also do a print statement on line 12. I'll add some text here. The average of all the numbers in the list is. All right, let's see if this works. I have quotes, I have a plus sign, and I have total divided by 5. Let's see if that works. We might have to put that in parentheses or quotes maybe. So let's test this. Oh, we did receive an error. Line 9, total of all the numbers is, can't convert string implicitly. Okay, so we may need to convert these numbers over if you want that print statement to work well. Okay, we've seen some examples of this along the way. Could I say total equals str total? If that helps. And now we're up on line 8. An error occurred. Total can't convert into a string. So we're going to have to convert our variables over. Instead of a plus sign, could I do a comma? All right, that helped. I could do the same thing on line 12. Let's do a comma instead of a plus. Let's see what happens here. Now it worked. So a comma instead of a plus sign works. As I go down now, it's clear to see the total of all the numbers is 1. The total of all the numbers is 3, 6, 10, 15, and then the average. So that works. Okay, and we saw a few errors there and solved the problem as we went along. Let's think about one more thing we might want to look for. Find the maximum number in the list. How could we do that? Well, we'd want to go through the list using a loop, right? We'd like to loop through the list. We'd like to traverse through the list. We've done examples. We've seen demos about what traversals and traversing through lists. So we'd like to traverse through this list, look at each number, and find out if that number is the biggest number in the list. Okay. Well, if I want to find the maximum number or the highest number, I'm probably going to need a variable to start with. So I'll go back up to the top of the code here, and right below the variable for total, I'll do a variable for maximum. And we need to think about how are we going to evaluate these numbers. If I want the highest number, what should I set maximum to? Should I set it to 0? Should I set it to 100? Should I set it to a negative number? Is it possible to set it to none? Is there another way we could do some things? Well, I'm just going to say 0. Okay. I'm, again, in our little world here right now, I don't have any negative numbers. Again, you would need to be prepared. What happens if you set maximum to 0 and then the user types in a negative number? Okay, so is there something else we could put here as a placeholder? None, maybe? None. Something to try out. So here we go. Find the maximum number in a list. And I have max set at 0. All my numbers are positive, so max 0 makes sense. As I'll go up, maximum is always the lowest number, right? 0. Right now, max is set to 0. Okay. We can only go up from there. All right, so let's give this a try. We have to use a loop to do this. All right, so again, I can say 4. And we're going to go through the numbers list again. Can I reuse item for item in numbers? Can I reuse item? There's only one way to find out. For item in numbers, so again, I'll go through this list. And what do I want to do? Well, I need to compare greater than, less than, equal to. I need to use some of these comparators to solve my problem. So if what? If item is greater than max, right? The first time I go through the list, item is 1. Is 1 greater than 0? Yes, it is. Okay, so what will we do then? Well, max will become the item. Okay, so the first time through, item is 1. Is 1 greater than 0? Yes, it is. So max becomes 1. 1 is now the highest number in my list. The next time through the loop, item becomes 2. Is 2 greater than 1? Yes, it is. Maximum becomes 2. Okay, and at the end, let's go ahead and print the max number in the list is, and again, we found that the plus sign did not work, so we'll use a comma, max. And again, if you like the space after the comma, just for some spacing and styling purposes, that's fine. So let's try this out. Okay, so it added up all the totals. It gave me the average, and it says the max number in the list is 5. And you and I agree that if we look at those 5 numbers, 5 is the highest number. It's also the last number. So did this really work? Or did it just grab the last number? Well, this is where we need to test our code a little bit. How about instead of the number 2, I have 20. 1, 20, 3, 4, and 5. You and I can clearly tell that 20 is the highest number. 20 is the second item in the list. So as this goes through the list, the maximum number is going to be 20. All right, so let's see if that works. And sure enough, it did. Okay. What if we had, I don't know, a number 40 here, right? We can run that, and clearly 40 is the highest number. So it works out pretty well. We found a way to add numbers up. We found a way to find the maximum and the average. And I'll just leave a little comment here for you. Could you apply this work to find the minimum number in a list? Could you use a loop and do the same problem, but find the lowest number? Give it a try. Good luck with everything, and we'll see you next time.